Hey, this is Dave, Front Porch Ideas. I have a beautiful piece of cherry, solid piece of cherry, beautiful piece of wood that I want to turn into a garden bench, or you can use it on your porch. And in fact, this one's going to actually be a gift for someone for their wedding. But come along and I'll show you how we're going to take this and turn it into something really beautiful and something that someone will have for a very long time. All right, one of the first things to do is I cut the legs out of another piece of cherry that I had. So we're going to actually dowel these into glue and dowel these into the bottom of the tabletop. But we have a problem, and that is that this doesn't lay exactly flat because this board happens to be a little bit curved. You see the gap here at the bottom. So my first step is to flatten this. This out here so that this will sit flat on here, and the dowels and glue will make a whole stronger joint. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Okay, first thing we're going to do is, like I said, is we're going to flatten this out. And I don't have to flatten the entire length of the whole bottom of this tabletop. All I have to do is flatten out where I'm going to put the leg. So what I've done is I've created a space because the leg is going to be on an angle. So I've created the space that I need to flatten out. An easy way to do that is just go ahead and draw some lines straight across. Now as I sand, I'll know when I'm hitting this spot, when I'm getting this fairly flat, and that'll help me guide my sander so I don't take excessive amount off. All I need to do is make this area flat. So that's our next step. All right. Well, like every wood project, there's always issues. This is pretty well warped in the middle. We had a bow, so I take it out, and at first I try to do it with a sander with about 60 grit paper, but it was just going to take way too long to do that. So instead of doing that, I went to a handheld planer, power planer, and which is a great tool for this kind of thing, and level this out. And now, instead of having a bow, now I got a flat piece of wood that I can attach my leg to. So that really took it out of there. And I still have plenty of wood left to do that. So this is a marvelous tool. If Father's Day, Christmas come around, and put it on your wish list because these are really great to use for this kind of thing. So we pretty much got it flat. I'm going to do some sanding on it, smooth it out a little bit, and then we'll see about attaching the legs here pretty soon. Stay with us. I planed it down. I planed this as the bottom down here. I planed it down. We're flat for the legs, as you saw. And I turned it over. I just planed the top of it a little bit, take some of the dirt and stuff off of it, get down to a little bit of the prettier layer of wood. Kind of went over it with my sander, just a little bit, just to clean it up, round off a couple things. And now, what I do is we've got these straight edges here on both sides because this was cut previous to me using it for this table. So these are square, doesn't look very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to soften. It looks hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to soften it up. We're going to do that, but I'm just going to camphor this edge right here, and probably the bottom edge too, camphor both of these, and then we can sand it and round it off, and it'll look a lot softer, give it a lot softer look. I keep calling it a table, but actually it's a garden bench or a porch bench. So if I say table, you know I'm talking about a bench. So right now I'm using the belt sander to take off the top layer of the dirt and crud from the wood. Taking it down a little bit, and then I'll come back with some finer grades, and you'll see that as we go along to get it really nice and smooth. Here's a tip that whenever you're doing any kind of woodworking, is you want to make sure that you save the sawdust, either some of the sawdust or some of the chips. This came from the planer. I got a piece of grass in there, but from the planer. But you want to save that. You want to save some of the sawdust because you'll use that in the finishing touches when you need to touch up stuff, fill in a crack, something like that. It really comes in handy if you're matching the same wood it came from. So rely on this more than we rely on wood putties and those kinds of things because those never really look great. This will match exactly the wood that it came from, so it works out really well. So stay with us and with our porch bench project. Okay, now that we have this all planed down, it's nice and flat to receive the legs. I've done some cursory sanding on it. We'll wait to do the finishing sanding at a later point. So the next thing to do is the legs, and so we're going to start on the legs and start sanding those down. And same kind of process. I didn't have to plane these; they were pretty well flat and square, so I think we're good there. So it's just a matter of taking off that top layer of crud and then going from there. So that's the next step, is to do the legs. All right, we're at the point where I have been sanding and sanding. It's been taking a lot of sandpaper on this project, but these are the legs, or this is one of the legs, and what we're going to do is drill holes for the dowels, because we're going to pin this to the bench top. So what I've done is sanded it down really well. It's almost down to its final sanding stages, which I'll do at the very end. So what I've done is I have these 3/8 inch dowels, and I'm going to drill holes in the top of this. And first what you need to do is mark this out. And I've got the holes drilled in this one already. But basically I just try to center them and make them equal distances from the end. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to drill the hole at least half the depth of your dowel, your pin, that you're going to put it with. And to do that, what I do is I put a piece of tape on mine. I kind of measure what the halfway point is going to be, and I put a piece of tape. So then when I'm drilling the hole, as I'm drilling the hole, I only have to drill down to that point. Move that over a little bit here so I can show you. And then I just drill down to that point and stop. So it's just a quick way to make a stop. I could set my drill press up for that, but this is just a really quick way to do it. So I've got the holes drilled. The pins are going to go in. I'm going to glue these in place today. Let them dry overnight on both pieces. We'll have these pinned. And then we'll just use these to mark the locations on the bench top, and then I'll drill those holes, and then we'll glue this thing together. So stay with us. All right, when you glue this in, I put a little bit in the bottoms of the holes, and I put glue about halfway up, and I kind of turn them in here. Once I get them in here, turn, I'll make sure they're straight. You'll see there's glue that comes out of that. And that's what I find for the moment. Make sure there's no dirt in there. We'll put a little glue in the bottom. And I'm going to put a little glue. And these are fluted, so that makes a really good bond. I like to turn them, and then what we'll do is we'll wipe that off, because we want to make sure the top part of this is perfectly flat, because this has to go against the other thing, and we want to make sure that these dry very straight, which makes it easier when we drill the other holes if we've got those straight. So I'll wipe that off, and then we'll just let these dry. Now, instead of trying to wipe all this off and get it smooth, the good thing to do is, if you have time, is to let this set. Let this set up and let the glue set a little bit, and then you take a chisel or something, and you can just pull it right away. Don't let it dry hard, but not to that point, but kind of in between, and then you can just take it right off, and works really well. Let's attach the legs. We've got our dowels already pinned, are glued in solid. All I did was put a little paint on the ends of them. I lined it up basically where I wanted it to go on the bench, set it down, and it gave me the 3 marks that I need where the pins are going to go. So that's pretty simple to do. So I have the locations for them. So now we've got to drill the holes, and we want to drill the holes as straight as we can. So I made up this little 90-degree jig because my drill press won't accommodate that wide. So I'm making my own little stand so that I can line up my drill in the hole where I'm going to drill, and I can bring this back, and then we can visually line it up to where this is straight up and down. Now all I have to do is keep the drill against this platform, this little angle thing, and I'm drilling basically straight down. And I've also put tape and measured how far that pin has to go in, and measure that so we don't go all the way through the wood here, because we just need to put the pin in. So that's where we are. All right, we have all these drilled. I'm putting some glue on here. I use Gorilla Glue. You can use the foaming kind, really strong, but I found that their Gorilla Glue non-foaming works really well too, so a little bit easier to deal with. So now we'll see if we fit. We have glue in the holes, we have glue on that. Let's see if we get in there. Look at that. We're good. Now what we do is we're going to clamp this in place, and we're ready to go here. Okay. All right, we have it clamped down. It's in. It's gluing up. Just have to let it dry. Let this set a little bit, and then I can pull that glue right off of there without getting the wood wet, which works really well. And we got one leg on. We'll let that set up before we start on the other one. Hey, okay, here we are. We've got our legs installed. They're gluing up on our bench. Clamped them in place. They're glued in. We'll finish out taking the glue off and stuff here as it dries a little bit more. So here it is in here. One thing you might want to note is that I don't have these legs like squared out. They're at angles a little bit. It gives a little bit more interest to do that. It makes it a little bit harder to put the center brace in, but it does give it, a little bit more character than just having straight legs all the time. So these kind of at angles for that to give a little bit more interest. So let these dry up, and then I'm let these dry for quite a while, and then come back, take these off, and then we'll work on the center brace. They're all glued up. They're really strong setting here, so now I can work with the center brace that goes between them. To do that, a couple things you have to figure out. One is where do you want to place the center brace, and then we have these angles we have to cut. So for mine, I'm putting it about the bottom of about 2 1/4 inches from the actual bottom. Remember, we're working upside down here. So for that, and to be able to cut this, basically what you do is you can take your brace, which I'll show you here. This is my brace. It's out of the same wood that I have here, and basically you're going to lay it across the top, and then you can mark your angles. And since this one's already cut, I'll show you to do that. Here's a trick you might want to think about. I can put it on where I want to place it, and then I can just draw my lines, and then I can cut to that angle on my saw, and it should fit. But because this is not perfectly flat, we want to make sure that this fits in here. So what I do is I cheat. I come out here at my widest point, and I cut it to that angle right there, and then I kind of creep it back into, I make multiple cuts and creep it back into where I need it to be. And so as you do that, you can center, play with it a little bit, and you center it. And I made these stops here so I know exactly where that board's going to be, and that helps a lot when I'm working with this. So I've got this cut, the angles are cut, and like I said, I just keep creeping it back because this is shorter. So if I cut it long first, I can walk it back with subsequent cuts until I get exactly where I want it, and so I make sure that we're flush as much as possible, because again, these aren't perfectly flat because we're trying to keep it as natural as we can. So that's how I'm putting the brace. Now what I'm going to do is work the brace. I'm going to kind of age it a little bit, make it look more like the wood I'm using, do a little sanding, maybe a little cutting, and make this board not look so pristine to match the rest of it. And then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to, I'll show you how I'll attach it when I get that finished. The brace is cut, the brace fits in, I've got it set in my braces on my blocks. What I did is stressed it a little bit, just took this and sanded some dents and things in it, made it look a little bit more like the rest of the piece, so it's not looks like it's a brand new piece of wood. So it'll come out fine. It's in there. It is in position, and it's the same distance from the bottom of the legs here to the top, or to the bottom of the brace. And you see I've got right here, this is a pocket hole jig, and basically what it's going to allow me to do is drill holes on an angle in here and then insert screws. And what I'm going to do, and then you can cover them up with some dowels, and it'll just look like there's nothing there when I get done. So it's just a good pocket screw, a good way to join things together and then hide those screws. Plus it'll be glued too. So the other option is you could drill holes on the outer sides of the legs, put screws in and cover it up with dowels or something and sand it. You can do that. You can also use dowels, just drill holes and dowel through it and then sand the dowels down. It just depends on what you'd like to do. A lot of people might use different colored wood, maybe some walnut, something like that for dowels so it stands out different than the rest. Depends on what effect you'd like to have. So we've got this all set up. Next thing I'm going to do is just drill the holes. I'll drill all four, 2 here and 2 on here, on what I think is the back side of this bench. And it's our next step. Almost there, final thing is sanding, and I've been sanding on this for quite a while. You want to use different grits as you go through it. I've gone all the way up to 600 grit. So I started out with, with the basic stuff like 80 grit to get it down, then 120, 220, I've gone 320, 400, and then 600 So it takes a little bit of time. Look for imperfections, sand those out as you go along, and you'll be good to go. So now we're at the final stage. We're going to put some stain on this, but I'm going to use natural stain, and that's what we'll be doing now. And then we'll put poly over top of that. So all I've got is some natural stain. This happens to be Minwax wood finish, and it works really well. Brings out the grain, and it'll give it a nice golden color. As you can probably see, I'll put a little bit over here so you can see it. So there we go, and stay with me and we'll finish this thing up. Okay, putting the natural stain, you can see how it brings out the nice grain of the wood at this point in time. Let it dry a little bit, and then you're going to see probably some little imperfections that you can probably touch up with some sandpaper and then put more stain back on it. If you do, now's the time to do it. And sometimes you can use a conditioner on it first. That way the stain will be a little more even. Depends on the effect you want from it. But there you go. Getting there. Last step is let this dry and then start putting poly on it. So we're almost there. It'll be a beautiful little garden or porch bench. Hey, we're all finished. Used clear stain to finish it out, sanded between coats, and it came out really nice. It makes a great outdoor garden bench, or we have it on our porch right now. I made this out of solid cherry, as you know, but you could use other materials just as well. You don't have to have solid cherry to do that with. You can use pine or any other kinds of woods you have. You saw some of the techniques I use. There's many ways to make a garden bench. I just showed you one way, and I've done it several different ways myself. That was just one way. So hope you enjoyed this. I hope it inspired you to get out there, find some wood, and make yourself your own garden bench for your porch or for the yard.